Good evening and welcome to it. It's the Private Property Podcast. I'm your host, Sibs Matiela, and we're here to talk all things property because privateproperty.co.za loves to connect you to the heart of property. You have questions, I don't have the answers, but I bring in experts who do. Today we're talking about tailoring the property search for each client. We've got Frikkie van Eeden here with us today, who is the broker owner of ReMax Advantage, and he's going to tell us about how real estate agents go about tailoring property searches to each client and how to deal with real estate agents as a first-time home buyer. Frikkie, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing extremely well. Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. Listen, first things first, what do real estate agents take into consideration when now I walk through your door, I've won the Powerball, which, you know, is a very effective way to buy your first-time home.
Exactly.
I walk through your door, I say, look, I've got this money, give me a house for this money, and sometimes I don't even know what exactly I'm looking for, where I want to buy, where I want to live, what any of those things entail. What do you offer me?
We do get different people through the door, and if we're talking about first-time buyers, I would say the first thing is find out what their needs are. Why are they looking for a property? Is it investment property? Is it a new job that they got? So what the needs are around the property itself. But then very much the financial affordability is sort of the starting point for first-time buyers. There's a lot around budgeting and going into a new area, but specifically working with someone like Better Bond, which is one of the ReMax partners. You go there first and find out what the affordability is, and then you see if you can match the affordability with what the needs are, basically, in short. And that's for first-time buyers. I think it's obviously the first thing that you do.
Would you suggest that a first-time buyer know exactly what they're looking for by the time they come to you?
I think you sort of pick up experience as you go along in life, and a lot of the first-time buyers that walk through our doors are sort of necessitated to move because of a new job, entering a market, coming to Rosebank, Sandton, surrounds where we operate. A lot of the people we get new entrants to the market working at the bank, for instance. So their only need is, listen, I have to be close to my job. And then only after that, they start really looking at what they want in a property. And I think that's where an experienced agent really comes into their own.
I'm curious as to what your first experience was when you were buying your first property. Did you know what you wanted? Was it an investment? Was it a place to live? Had you moved from one city to another? Did you work with a really great real estate agent and you were like, yeah, this is it?
Yeah, so a little bit of both. I had a small investment property first. My biggest buy was the house that I'm staying in now. And it was sort of, listen, there's planning around this. I started a new business in Johannesburg, moved across from Pretoria. I had a lot of things that I was sure of that I needed in this property. And I was planning ahead. I got married, so I was planning on having kids. You have to be close to the schools. That kind of things comes into play, and potentially a lot of first-time buyers, they're just fixated on, listen, I have to get close to the work. So a lot of time, first-time buyers just buy, and after 3 years, they realize that they've outgrown this property. So a lot of the time, it's not that bad. It's good to enter into the market, and from there you can upgrade. You start knowing what your needs are also. You know, if you move into Joburg or wherever you might move, after a while you realize, listen, I'm actually quite far from the school. You know, these routes actually have a lot of traffic on them in the mornings. Something that is coming back because the demand for Rosebank and Sandton is really taking a spike because of people going back to the office.
Yeah.
I think gradually it will keep on going that way. Yeah. So once again, going back to what a real estate agent can do. If you have an experienced real estate agent, you sit down with them and you tell them your story, and potentially they tell you, oh, well, if you're going to drive into Sandton, you do not want to take this route. So potentially look at suburb A, B, and C. So if you know what suburb you want to stay in, I would say go have a look on the main portals and find someone that has a lot of listings in that area.
Okay.
Go to that, because that is generally your area expert. I would say, you know, the majority of agents that are real experts in a suburb, that is where the knowledge lies. And you want to be speaking to these agents to get advice. And you might know I want to move to Sandton, but staying in Sandton potentially is expensive. We had, especially after lockdown or during lockdown, it started already. We had a lot of people selling off investment and high-end apartments within the CBDs of Sandton and Rosebank, and buying in areas like Linden and Blairgowrie, for instance, that did really well, just because there was a lot of value there. So if you come into Johannesburg and you are already married, instead of buying in the CBD, you can find much better value for you as a growing family just outside. Otherwise, you'll be buying, and of course, every time that you buy, it's now a big impact is the surrounding fees. And the transfer duty has gone up significantly, so there's extra fees. That's also another thing that you have to discuss with first-time buyers. We often get people buying property, signing the agreement, and then as soon as they get the transfer fees from the attorneys, remember there's transfer fees and there's bond fees. Now suddenly like, what is this? So that's why you have to have a conversation around it. Like I said, affordability is always the first question that you ask. The banks, and specifically Better Bond that work with us, they do a proper assessment and a pre-qualification. So from there you can go and shop in a certain price bracket and then match that up with your needs.
I think like people sometimes have a mistrust of real estate agents because you're like, I want something, you know, that speaks to me directly, that I'm gonna really fall in love with. And there's a kind of mistrust, like, are you here to sell me something, or are you here to listen to my interests and my needs and the things that I really want? And I suppose in that process, because it's a people industry, you have to build relationships and build trust. So I guess I would ask you, what is the best way to build a fruitful relationship between you and your real estate agent as a first-time buyer?
In my office, I think I sort of sound like an echo because I keep on saying the same thing, but the main thing in my training is relationship-based business. So on both sides, we live in an era where information is something that you can easily get. You're not going to really talk someone into a sale, I don't think. My philosophy is you put all of the information on the table. So for me, there's two ways that agents approach this. Obviously, they need the listings. They need something to sell. So the first thing is you have to start building your rapport with people in your area, build up your knowledge base. That's why I'm saying if you come in as a buyer, go have a look who's listing in an area and who's got a lot of listings, because they've been there and they've had to build a lot of relationships in the area, and they potentially bring a lot of knowledge to the table. And then if it comes from the buyer side, exactly the same thing. Go sit with someone with knowledge and don't just use them as a facilitation of getting a OTP signed. Tap into their knowledge. I think that's actually where the value in estate agents lie. There is a bit of a mistrust because people think, how can they be charging all of this money? But I can tell you now that the value that an agent brings to the table, a knowledgeable agent brings to the table, is invaluable. Yeah, you might be sitting in litigation for 2 years because you were just trying to use the cheapest one around. So there's value in that, and for a first-time buyer, make sure that you tap into that value.
So I love the fact that you brought up that a knowledgeable real estate agent is, you know, the one who can add the most value to you along your journey and now trying to get this property. How does one discern like a knowledgeable real estate agent? Do you know what I mean? Like, how do you tell?
So there's different levels of it that you have to go through as an agent. So in QF4, for instance, shows you that you'll be dealing with someone that's been in the industry. They've run the gauntlet to a certain extent. But for me, you go have a look at who's doing the work in a specific area. You always have some parameters of where you're looking, and I can tell you now that very seldom do I see entrants to the markets, like candidate property practitioners coming into the market and listing 20%.
1,000 million.
Yeah. So yeah, it's for me. Anyone that is listing more than 10% of the properties in that suburb can be seen as a property expert.
And trustworthy.
Yeah, because it's tough. It's tough. You have to break into the market. So generally, the guys that's just hopping around and have one or two listings, they're not going to bring a lot of knowledge about the area to the table.
Got it.
So that's something that I would look at. And then word of mouth, one of the main things that we talk about in our training also is referral business. You want to have clients for life. You build that relationship, and hopefully, if I move to an area, one of my colleagues will tell me, "Listen, I worked with Mr. X, and he was fantastic." I've got a couple of examples for you if you can go there. I've got just Hurlingham, just down the road from Sandton. I've got an agent. He's been the strongest agent in that area for must be close on to 20 years.
Wow.
If we do training, it's apparent to me that you ask a question about the area, and he will tell you who the previous owner was, and then who bought from them and what changes they made to the property.
The title deed.
They bring peripheral knowledge to the table that you cannot get anywhere else. For instance, recently they boomed off a certain section of that suburb. So he was able to tell you that beforehand because he's involved in what's going on in the suburb. He speaks to the people, he's got relationships with the owners that's there. So that's the knowledge that you bring. And you're willing to pay that money because he brings a lot of extra knowledge to the table.
Which I suppose value. Would save you money actually at
of
the
course.
End of the day.
Of course. I can tell you now that buyer's regret is a real thing, because if you go into a property, then you start nitpicking and you see things that you might not have seen. And a lot of the time it is an emotional buy. So you go in there and you feel like, yes, I see myself here. This is a nice space.
Yeah.
But have you taken the time to look at certain elements that actually might cost a lot of money? The roofing, the state of the pool, a lot of these things might cost you a lot of money once you're in. You might have that emotional connection to it, but yes, it's probably the biggest asset that you will own. So think of it as an investment. Even if it's not an investment property, it is an investment. It'd probably be your biggest asset. So take the time. There's professionals that you can use to inspect as well. But probably if you work with the correct agent, they tell you this. They say, listen, this is a old suburb. So some of the suburbs that we deal in has been around for close on 100 years. So some of the properties are old. If you're dealing with these ones, you have to look at certain elements. Some of them still have asbestos roofing, and there's stuff to be looked at.
Yeah.
And an experienced agent will help you through that.
So I'm glad that you brought up buyer's regret and sort of picking the right person and an experienced person to help you through the process. Let's consider I make a mistake, or I picked the wrong person, or I now have given someone too much information or too much money. Like, what are the things I'm trying to avoid as a first-time home buyer now dealing with a real estate agent I don't necessarily know that I can trust?
I think as a first-time buyer, you are in a decent position. You don't have to use only one. And I think one of the major mistakes that people make as first-time buyers is they don't give it enough time. I mean, you are actually studying the area and the properties. When I bought my property, I think we were looking for around about 9 months.
Wow.
And we saw a lot of properties. And after a while, if you walk into that property, you immediately know that, listen, this is good value, this is not good value. You know, if I can get this property at maybe 10% less than what they are marketing at, this is a good deal. But the first couple of ones that I went to, I can tell you now, and I'm in a real estate business. The first couple of them, I didn't have the information actually, and I was interested in one or two of them, and then as I went along, I was like, there's not good value. So I think that's important. Take your time, and as a first-time buyer, you're not married to one agent. Make sure that you get opinions from more than one, and put it on the table. And if you've spoken to a couple of agents, I can tell you now that you will get some kind of rapport or have a trust relationship with a specific one. And there'll be a reason for that. And hopefully it'll be because they've won over your trust, giving you information, that extra information that will bring value to the table.
I think that taking your time is super important, just considering it's such an exciting process, right? And you save up and you save up and you put away and you have this goal. And then you finally just want to execute and do the thing and get the, instead of just taking your time, because it's also just part of the process to look properly so that you don't regret the decision that you've made at the end of the day.
No, exactly. And like I said, it's going to be your biggest asset. Take your time, and it is very, very difficult to remove the emotional side of it.
Yeah.
Because especially if you're going to live in this space, you do get emotionally involved very, very quickly. And I think that's maybe a little bit of a key to it, is try and remove the initial emotion around it and make sure that you see more than one option, and then sit back and then talk about the surrounding facts, and then make the decision.
Frikkie, before I let you go, why should interested buyers come to ReMax?
Why?
Yeah.
So we've built up a big network around Johannesburg. I think actually in and around Gauteng we've got more than 1,000 property practitioners. So there's a big network. A lot of the time people arrive at my office as a referral from another ReMax office. We by far the biggest brand around. What that brings is a wealth of experience. So yes, for me, it is always about picking a specific agent. So not necessarily going to ReMax, but it is one of the biggest brands. Go into ReMax and pick the agent that you feel comfortable with, and work with them. ReMax happen to be a big brand, and we've got wealth of experience.
Okay, I'm sold. Thank you.
Are you?
Yeah, but I mean, I'm still waiting to win the lotto. So
yes,
once
as soon as that comes in,
then I will pay you a visit. Absolutely.
I've already lined up one of these penthouses in the Leonardo. It'll be very nice and a comfortable little walk for you.
It's so nice to
the
dream. So nice to dream. Thank you so much, Frikkie van Eeden from ReMax Advantage, for joining me on the show today.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
You've given me a lot of food for thought, and all the best for your fourth quarter.
Thank you.
Listen, that's all we have for you today. We will be back tomorrow again on the Private Property Podcast with myself, Sibs Matiela. I hope you've learned a lot from Frikkie, as much as I have, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow evening.